So now we're looking at expectations. And an expectations overview, we look for interpreters to carry a complete tool belt. We look for them to share organizational missions and values. We look for them to do data reporting. We look to them to have professional preparations for their jobs, and we look to them to be a team player. Kind of going back originally to what we had talked about with all of the different aspects of the role. I feel that when we're looking at an organization, it's important to define the expectations of your interpreters, of your vendors, whatever it is, because you as a healthcare organization, there should be the power and control over your vendors as much as you have over your interpreters. So one of those things is looking at the Code of Ethics and the Standards of Practice, and we've all seen them, the IMIA, the NCIHC. There's a lot of them out there. But what I look at it as is the interpreter's tool belt. So they're going to be in situations you can't possibly lay out every single encounter or situation that interpreter is going to be in, but you can build up their tool belt so that when they do make a decision, they're making an educated decision, and you're able to support them then because they've really taken into account some of the things, what we've had people who have come back and said, gosh, I know that I stepped outside here, but here's all the reasons why, and I know I should have done this, but that, because at the end of the day, we're in healthcare, and you really do have to put your head down at night and know that you did the right thing. And so there are the opportunities to step out, but with us, if you step out, you need to be able to understand why and what you did differently and jump right back in. So that's the tool belt. It's also important to share organizational missions and values. The interpreters in an organization should have those same characteristics of what the organization's mission is, what the values are, because they're representing the organization to the community. They're representing the organization to other folks within the organization. And it's the same thing with vendors. What are the vendors' values? What are the vendors' ideas of good practice and those types of things? Do they match with the organization? As an interpreter going for employment, does that employer match the same values that you have? In considering all of those things helps to make sure that there's a good fit. So real quickly, our mission is to provide healthcare industries with customizable options for language access plans. We do this through an interpreter hiring, training, management process that creates a unique solution for every healthcare organization. Our language is healthcare. And so what that does is that when our customers look at that, or when people are looking, and you're looking, when you're looking at what we do, or you're looking at a different organization's mission, you see what they value. It's the hiring, it's the training, it's the management. That's what we stand for, and that's what we do. And so, and the customizable piece is kind of what we're getting at with all of this, is that a lot of times it's either or. Well, it shouldn't be. Let's look at all the options, look at all the data. And then our values are professionalism, communication, education, and integrity. So when customers look at us, that might not be what they care about. They might be driven by something else, so we're not probably going to be the right fit. Just as we're looking for customers, if they're customers that don't really fit with the direction that we're headed, probably isn't the right thing to pursue. But also as interpreters coming on, if you look at this and you see what it is and it matches yours, chances are we might be a good fit. So it all really boils down to different things. Data reporting, I think it's very clear to have expectations for what you require of your interpreters, but I also think it's very important to have expectations of what vendors are required to do. And so again, looking at that defining expectations phase for our interpreters and most interpreters, you have to enter in times, you have to call in things, you have to do follow-up appointments. There's a lot of different data and information that needs to come back to any organization. And so that is the expectations surrounding how that should get back, and what type of time frame is there to bring it back in. Really defining what that process looks like is going to help to make interpreters successful, and it's also going to help the organization be more efficient and have more control over the process. Professional preparation is also important to define. A lot of times it seems, and this might be very Wisconsin of me, kind of like a duh, where you look at things and it's like, well, you're an adult and you should know how to do all of this, you should know how to be a professional, you should know how to prepare, duh. And then we run into the people who just totally miss the boat. Well, that's my fault. As a manager and as an owner and as a supervisor of these things, if I haven't defined what professional preparation looks like, then I haven't done a very good job of making them successful. If it's defined and it's not executed, then that's not my problem. That's a choice made by somebody else. So it is very, very important to define those things. And again, when an organization defines what their expectations are, the vendor should also be delivering on those same expectations. It shouldn't just be, well, we have these requirements for our internal staff, but we haven't really checked out or we're not holding accountable the vendors that we work with either. It really should be both ways, because ultimately the healthcare organization pays the bills. And they really, that again, kind of going back to why it's important to do these things, the organizations are ultimately responsible. And then finally, team player, what does that look like? Who are you going to work with? How are you going to work with them? What's your interaction going to look like? And really defining how that is, because when you do that, you're going to give a very clear picture as to what the role looks like and what your expectations are. So here's a question. How do you think an organization benefits from clearly defined interpreter and vendor expectations, policies, and procedures?
I just think if everything is clear to everybody, then it's just much easier to operate. Everybody knows what to expect from everybody else, and so everything can run much more smoothly. You can identify problems much more quickly.
Right. So it was said that the expectations are laid out. Everybody knows how to work with everybody, makes things smoother, and it runs more efficiently. Yeah. So how would the healthcare interpreter then benefit from clearly defined expectations, policies, and procedures? Thinking of the individual.
They know what to do and what not to do.
Yep, they know what to do and what not to do. And I think as managers, that's really important.